All right. Another side note, if things have an asterisk by it in AlabamaWorks, please make sure you enter something in. If you do not, the system will give you a red message at the top and it'll take you back to where the information has not been entered. All right, so the first thing we have is the application date. This is the date that you are going to be opening up your application / enrollment for this individual. Um, Under the application date, you also have your youth eligibility date. These two dates should match when you're creating them in AlabamaWorks. For this training purpose, I'm not going to put today's date just so you can see the flow of when you're entering in a application date to entering in the services to closing out services. If we do everything on the same day, it's going to look a little funny. So I'm going to enter in a different date for training purposes. In real life enrollment, please make sure your dates are current and that they are the same for the application date and the youth eligibility date. So I'm going to enter in 2025, January the 21st as my application date. This date will also be my youth enrollment date. Now, you see there are other tabs, adult, dislocated worker, leave those as they be. For individuals that meet those categories, they will get those dates entered in from the Career Center. As youth providers, you will only enter in the application date and the youth eligibility date. Next here with the next asterisk, you have your local area. So whatever area you are located in, make sure you select that area. So it's either north, east, west, north central, central, or southeast. So please make sure you select your correct area. By selecting your correct area, it selects the correct office location. It gives you those options. So please make sure that is correct. Once you start doing the WIOA enrollments for your participants, your office location will be in the system for you to select. All services will be tied to your office. For performance purposes, for your monthly reports that are sent in by the 10th of every month, they will be tied to your area and your office. All right, there is this small box here, this small little statement here that's in blue. Check the box to indicate this is a partial application. As you are opening up a WIOA enrollment for a participant and you get to a point where you either cannot complete it or some information for whatever reason is missing, if you select this box here, it will lock your application for you at the point to where you are, so that once you go back into it, you don't have to start all the way over again. All right, so now we see that our tabs have expanded to 11 tabs for the enrollment. All right, so the information on these pages, they will pre-fill from when you created the AlabamaWorks account for your participant. So it will have their first name, their last name, their social. Again, you can verify to make sure that that social matches what is on their social security card. Once you get into the WIA enrollment for verifying or demographical information, you do have to verify it. So here it's asking to verify the social security number. So on the verify, it has SSN verify. We select verify and it gives you 5 options of how you can verify this information. Whether it's social security card, a DD-214, their school records, a W-2 form, or the school / state federal identification number with social security number on card. For training purposes, I'm going to say I use the social security card. Again, select the option for the documentation that you have. You don't want to select something else and then you have a different form of documentation, and then when it's up for monitoring, it's something different. So you want to make sure you're selecting what you have. Then you go in and the address is going to come over from that initial creation of the account. So it does have the address. You do have to verify the address. Under verify, it gives you different options. And for this, you have more options of what you can use to verify their address. So it goes from a utility bill to a lease. If they're receiving food benefits and they have that awards letter or their driver's license, select the option for the documentation that you have. All right. Here you have the mailing address. If their mailing address and their residential address is the same, if you select check here to use the residential address, you can select it and the system will pre-fill it for you. If the participant lives somewhere and does not receive mail at that same place and they've given you different addresses, you can put both addresses into AlabamaWorks. Then it asks you for the phone number and the type of phone, whether it's work, a relative, cell phone. You do have to select that. If they give you an alternate contact phone number, you can enter it in AlabamaWorks. And again, you do have to select the phone type that it is. When you create them initially, they do have to have an email. If they don't have an email, by all means, please go through with them to create an email address. And you always want to make sure it is a professional type of email. If they have one and it is not, please create a new one with them. All right, so next we're on the demographic information. So here we've already entered in the date of birth. So it's showing that. So it's asking us to verify that date of birth. And it gives us again options to documentation that we can use to verify their date of birth. I'm going to select the driver's license. Then the system has you with the date and the date of their eligibility. And then there's more questions. And then for their citizenship, this is another selection that does have to be verified. So again, for their U.S. citizenship status, it gives you these options. You do have to select the option and you do have to verify that option. Again, I'm going to use driver's license. That's one document that I could use to verify multiple items. So I'm going to use that. For this participant, of course, if you have males above the age of 18, they are to be registered with Selective Service. There is a blue tab here, Selective Service website. So if this participant is registering for Selective Service for the first time, if you select that tab, it takes you to the Selective Service website and you would go to register. When you register that participant, you're needing their name, date of birth, their social, their address. And once they are registered, it'll print out, it'll default to the next page, which will be a registration page. If you have a participant that says that they are already registered, you can come back to this page and select verify registration. Verifying the registration, it'll print out an acknowledgement letter and it'll have their registration number, their name, and their identifying information. Once you register them in AlabamaWorks, if it is a male and you go to verify, it gives you the options. If they have the Selective Service card, if they went to sss.gov, or the Selective Service acknowledgement letter. That's the letter, the printout letter that you'll get from the computer, but they will also send that documentation as well. So I'm just going to say internet sss.gov. All right, then you get into their race, ethnicity. You select the option. If that participant has a disability, you select yes, and you do have to verify. If they do not have a disability, default it as no, and it does not pull the asterisk up to verify any information. Okay, next we have the veteran status information. So this is the spouse or caregiver. This information is initially put in when you're creating the AlabamaWorks account. For whatever reason, the second question, are you a spouse or family caregiver to a member of the armed forces who is wounded, ill, or injured? It does not select no automatically, so just make sure if it does not pertain to that individual, please select no, because if you don't and you go through it, it will give you an error message that that item was missed. The military service, if they are or are not in the U.S. military or are a veteran, select the option that pertains to them. All right, next we have the employment information. So if your participant is employed at the time of registration, you select that. If they are not employed, you select that. Or if they were employed, but they received a notice of termination or military separation, select it. And this information is at program entry. So when they come to you and getting ready to be enrolled in your program, that's their the employment status that they're asking for. Once it is selected, it does ask you to verify that information. For this person, we said that they were not employed. And again, it gives you options of documentation that you can use to verify that information. The most commonly used for youth that are enrolling into a youth program would either be the written customer self-attestation form or case file notes. Case file notes is what you as the youth provider case manager would enter into AlabamaWorks. All right. And then the question, not in the labor force, if they are not, answer the question. If they are, for the UC eligibility status, this here is for participants or individuals that have either exhausted their unemployment claimant benefits, if they are currently receiving unemployment benefits, or if they are not either a claimant nor an exhaustee. But upon the initial registration and assessment for these participants, they'll let you know if they are receiving unemployment or if they have not. All right. Okay. This next box here is the number of weeks unemployed. If your participant is unemployed, and let's say they have worked, they only work somewhere a short amount of time, or it was long term and they're not there anymore, put the number of weeks that they have been unemployed. Participants that are the ages 16 and 17 and they've never worked, um, for this,
For the number of weeks unemployed.
yeah,
If the individual has not worked for 27 or more weeks, you'll hit yes and hit the number of weeks. You'll have to verify that. If it is a child under the age of 18, then just put number of weeks unemployed, add 1, and create a case note that the child is under the age of 18. That's kind of weird. And then if it's a child over the age of 18, because all of this is based on the unemployment insurance policies, which doesn't start until you hit 18. You have to be 18 years old to apply. So if it's someone over the age of 18, and they've never worked, just put in the number of weeks since their 18th birthday. So essentially, age 18 is the starting point for this counter.
all right. So since our participant is showing 19, he's over 18, I'm just gonna put in 12 for training purposes. All right. If your participant has any employment work history, you can add it in. This can also be added in initially. And this information can help create them a resume if you want to use the resume formatting that's in AlabamaWorks. Oh, okay. Verify employment status is required. I was talking to y'all about it. I didn't put anything. All right, so now you see the red error message if you miss something that should have an answer by it. All right, so next we're going to the education portion of the enrollment. And if you're following along in the book, this is page 24. And so it has your youth eligibility date. This was the date that we entered in on the first page. And then, so the next question that is asking, has a secondary school diploma equivalent at youth program eligibility? For the training purposes, we're going to say that this participant does not currently at the time. So I'm going to select no. All right. And then it goes down to the next one. So the school status at youth program eligibility. For this participant, like I said, for training purposes, they do not have a secondary school diploma or equivalent. So their school status at program eligibility entries will be not attending school or secondary school dropout. Now, it does ask me to verify this information. It only gives me two options: the written customer self-attestation form or school records. You need one of the two to verify this information. I'm going to say the written customer self-attestation form. All right. Since I said that this participant was not attending school or was a secondary dropout, the system automatically defaulted this WIA attending any school. It automatically defaulted that to no. All right, now it goes a little bit more in depth for the education information. So it asks me, what's the highest school grade completed? Here you select the option. I'm going to say 11th grade. It went ahead and pre-filled if they had a high school diploma or equivalent. Then it asks me the highest education level completed. So it gives all of these education levels. Because we said the participant is not attending any school, we'll say no education level completed. And then again, it does ask me to verify this information. And it only gives one option, and it says other applicable documentation. You select that radio tab, and I'm gonna type in, I'm just gonna say case notes. And I put case notes because in the initial eligibility or initial assessment case note, that information should be provided in there. All right, then it asked me one more time the school status, and then we had already selected not attending, and then we're verifying it with the self attestation form. For the education partner services, these will automatically default to did not self-identify. So these here, if for any reason um, your participant might be receiving those services, please select the correct answer that pertains to it. If not, leave it at the defaulted did not self-identify. All right, now we're going to the public assistance information. If your participant is receiving any type of public assistance, TANF, SSI, SNAP, SSDI, please select the appropriate yes answer. Once you do select the yes answer, it will ask you to verify. This system has said, we've said no, so the TANF is no, SSI, the recipient, if it is, it'll ask if it's the applicant or the family member, and you do have to verify it. If they're receiving SNAP, we said that they were, so it's going to ask me to verify that they are receiving SNAP benefits. And these are the options that it gives you. It gives you about 6 different options that you can choose from to verify them receiving SNAP. I'm just going to say the eligibility verification. All right, then we go down. All right, these here are some other barriers. So youth that are living at currently living in high poverty county areas, the providers that are currently on this training are not under the high poverty counties, correct?
I don't think.
Okay. So if you, no, I don't think so. Okay. All right.
But for training purposes, this is being recorded, so if you want, there's a cheat sheet in the staff resources that's like a desk aid that has youth eligibility, and it's updated every year, and it has the in-school youth and out-of-school youth, and the high poverty counties are in there.
All right. If your participant is a foster child, select the answer. Again, these here, if you select yes from the defaulted no, you do have to verify it. So make sure you're going through and reading the statements and making sure that you do have that information. All right, now we're going to go to the individual barriers. These here are the youth barriers for participants for their eligibility to be determined for a youth program. We have English language learner, if they're basic skills deficient. So here you'll get their scores from the tape test, from the tape test, and you'll have the scores. We're going to say yes, that this participant is basic skills deficient. By me selecting yes, I do have to verify that information. So once I verify it, it gives me three options. I'm going to select the standardized assessment test, which is the tape test that the participants have to take. Here's other youth barriers: if they're homeless, a runaway, foster care status, out of home placement, ex-offender, incarcerated at program entry, pregnant or parenting youth. Again, males that have a child can be not be a parenting youth until that child is born. So just if it's a male and they say, oh, well, I have a child on the way, then they're not considered a parenting youth until that child is born. All right, the last option here, youth requires additional assistance to complete an educational program or to secure/hold employment. This here is the number 9 for youth eligibility. This here is for participants that don't meet any of the other youth eligibility barriers, but you have assessed that they need assistance.
Only like 5% of the youth can be this. So this is something you use very sparingly. All of your participants, or most of them, or not even half of them, should be this. They should have some other kind of barrier. This is like a last resort for 1 out of every 100 that you do, something like that.
All right, now we'll continue to the barriers to employment. If your participants have any barriers to employment, please select the corresponding answer. And then you could just see there that these are other barriers: Hawaiian native, single parent. The meets governor special barriers to employment. Please always leave this at no. This is another program in addition to this, and it's for adults. So please leave this as no. What did I miss? Oh. Oh.
That's the foster care.
Okay. All right, next we have the income information. Please make sure that you have entered into the system their household information and annualized income. So for this participant here, we are going to say it's 2 individuals, the participant and the guardian. And we do have to verify this information. It gives you different options of documentation you can use to verify this information. Um, because this participant is under the high school dropout eligibility option, I'm going to select income not verified for out of school youth barrier. Even though I'm selecting this option, I still have to go in and enter some kind of family income information. It says last 6 months times 2. That's how income is calculated for WIOA income eligibility. I'm going to put in my amount. I still have to verify it, even though it does not have a red asterisk by it. Again, it gives options of documentation that can be used to verify that information. However, I will select income not verified for out of school youth, and it gives the dropout, pregnant parent, and offender. Then I'm going to go to my next. These here are miscellaneous barriers. So again, it says adult priority is going to automatically default that to no. And any other miscellaneous barriers. All right, next we're on the last page, which is the eligibility summary. This here is a culmination of all the information that has been entered into AlabamaWorks for it to determine that your participant is eligible to receive WIOA services. All right, so the applicant meets the definition for low income because the participant was receiving SNAP. And here is the eligibility. Services not met. Okay.
This is how you know that you've entered some information wrong. It
It's
would be
just showing
green.
y'all.
Yes.
Yeah. If it is correct, it will say it will be green and it'll say yes out of school and it'll tell you the reason selected service is not met. So now I'm going to have to go back. And anytime you miss something, you can always go up to the top and select on the tab for the section for where the information is missing. And here, I'm going to go back and select yes, and it was verified. Hitting next in the system is saving the information, so I don't have to go back to all of the other tabs. I'm going to click on the miscellaneous so it can take me back to the next one. So now I'm back on my eligibility tab and yes, our youth is eligible as an out of school youth and it is green. All right, so now we have our WIOA grant eligibility. Leave that as not applicable as already defaulted. Even for the non-WIOA grants, leave that as it is. Now, once you get to this page here, you do have to assign, if it's you that will be the case manager, you have to assign yourself as the case manager by selecting assign me. Or if you are registering this participant and they will be then under the case manager, you select that appropriate case manager. So I am going to assign a case manager. Okay. I'm just going to go to AlabamaWorks. I'm just going to select someone. And now you see it will show what area this person is and who is the case manager. If for any reason your cases become or have to be assigned to a new case manager for a certain participant, you remove that case manager assignment and then assign them a new case manager. All right, so now we are finishing up for creating the WIOA enrollment. And it always brings you to this page here for the WIOA application number. In your books, page 34, always select in the WIOA application participation, select that, which will take us to now. We will enter in our first service. So at the top, the service always has the identifying information for this participant, which always has a state ID. And of course, the state ID is created once the AlabamaWorks account is created. This is going to be their unique identifying number for this participant. It'll have their name, their date of birth, the eligibility date. So here you enter in your participation date, and we're going to use the participation date for when we first created the WIOA enrollment. It has their participation age. Then we go over to next. And now we're putting in our information for our first service. I do want to let you know when you're entering in a service, there are 7 tabs, but when you're entering a service or working in a service for a participant, you're only going to use tabs 1, 2, and 7. That's all you'll use. If it's a service that will continuously stay open, you'll use tabs 1 and 2. So just remember that even though it's 7 tabs, you will not use all 7 of those tabs. All right, under the general information, it gives their username, the state ID, their name, address, their participation date, and their funding source. This participant here is an out-of-school youth, so that's their funding source, and that also automatically pre-fills their customer program group. Again, you're going to select your office, your area, and then your office location. So, and again, as a youth provider, your office name will populate in the drop down for your program.
Like pick area.
All right, so here I'm going to select a different area. I'll just say
Southeast.
Oh.
It's LBW and well, and either that or
Okay.
whichever one of those is their.
All right, so I'll go to Southeast. All right, so now you see for LBW that's on this training, this is your program. So you would select your program. Yeah. North Central for Dannon, we have you here, the Dannon Project. So you'll see how it looks when you're selecting your office for doing once you're completing services. I'm going to go back and just select that one. All right, so here's where you will enter in your first activity service code. You always have to enter in a service code, and you do that by selecting the blue hyperlink, select activity code. When you're first creating, it gives a little more, but you'll have the one service available, which is the first youth service, which is this 412, the objective assessment service. Once you select this service and it is captured in the system, it gives you the availability to select more services. All right. For the objective assessment service, this service will open and close on the same day. So your projected begin date and your projected end date, the actual begin date, all of those dates will be the same day. Once you get into full case management for your participants, certain services will have a different projected end date. So for this, I'm going to use my same day of January the 21st. That's my projected end date also. And then again, it will show who is the current case manager for this participant. Then we go to next. Now we're under the second tab, the enrollment service provider information. Here is where you select the provider. So providers, this is where you will select your program. I'm just putting in anything. Once you select the program, you do have to select the service course contract. So this information here is going to be your program's contract information. How this is showing up, it will not show up the same way for,
It'll just have
it'll
like
just be
one or
yours.
two.
My information. All right, then once we go to next, this is going to automatically take me over to tab 7, which is the closure information. And I'm going to enter in the information to close out this service. So again, because this service opens and closes on the same day, the last activity date will be that date. You do have to select the completion code. Now, again, I told you stuff that's in AlabamaWorks that has an asterisk has to be answered. When you're entering services in AlabamaWorks, the closure page will not have an asterisk, but it does have to be completed. So just FYI, there are no asterisks, but it does have to be completed. For your completion code, you will use successful because they successfully completed the objective assessment, which technically you, the case manager, will be successfully completing the objective assessment because once we finish this, we will create the objective assessment. Here you have to answer the school status on the last day of service. So this is their status on the last day of service. All right, I'm going to pause. We have a question.
Hey, good afternoon. This is Kate from LBW. I have a question about when you're going through the objective assessment, right? And you have the self-attestation for them being homeless, and I think it was the unemployment one where you say they're under 18, so you put 1 week and then put it in the case note. Do you just create one case note for all of those things attached to this 412 activity code?
You would make one case note for their whole enrollment, just going over how they're eligible. And you would
Okay.
include it there, yes.
Okay, so it's not tied to 412, it's just tied to enrollment only.
Right, you do the 412 enrollment all at the same time. Yes.
Okay.
All right, so then we do have to verify that status. Again, like when we were creating the WIA enrollment, it only gave 2 options. Here, it's the same 2 options, school records or the written customer self-attestation form. I'm going to select this. That's what I selected for the enrollment portion of it. And then you go to finish. All right, so once you finish it, this is how, sorry, I gotta get to it. Crap, sorry, that's it. All right. This is how it will look when you enter in your first service. So you have your status and the C is for you, the C is yellow for close. There are 3 different status color tabs. You have yellow, which is C for close. Then you have red, which will be a S for system close. And then you have a green O for open. So these will be the 3 different status colors that you'll see for your services that you are entering into AlabamaWorks. It has the service code, the title of the service code, the provider information, that it is a youth service, and we have our projected begin date, actual begin date, projected end date, and actual end date that has been entered in. Okay, so now we've entered in the objective assessment service. Now we have to go in and create the objective assessment. So to find the objective assessment, you go back up to the top of the screen and we're going to go to plan. Your objective assessment and your ISS will be under plan. So here, the red tab, create objective assessment summary. You select that information. Again, it gives your state ID. And now we have to select the program information. So for program, it's always going to be WIOA. It's going to automatically populate the application ID that is created once we had selected that participation box. It automatically created an application ID. It automatically put in my workforce area, which will be for your area. And then I have to select my office. So you'll have to select your office. And then for your assessment date, so you put the date in that you're creating the assessment. I'm going to go back to my date that I've been using, 1/21/25. The system will automatically gray out this information, name, address, information. And then I'm going to go in and change. I'm changing my date for the training purposes, but your dates will be on for your dates that you're creating this. Then I'm going to go to next. All right, so the program expectations. Are you seeking immediate employment? So once you've discussed this with this participant, then you answer that question. Then the next one is, what services are you seeking? And this will be what services are they seeking as to why they enrolled into your program. I'm going to put in educational services. And here's the employment expectations. This here pre-filled from when the AlabamaWorks account was initially created, because it does ask you to put in an occupation. So whatever occupation that participant is wanting, that's what we put in. So for this participant, it was chefs and head cooks. So it just rolled over to the objective assessment. This here is information if they are going into that employment field or looking for work in that employment field, just some expectations that they're hoping for if they're wanting full-time, regular employment, full-time, part-time, shift preference. This here isn't any type of determining factor. This is just, like I said, preferences that the participant will be interested in when they're finding employment. All right, so next here we have desires help in career planning. If they are, you select yes. Seeking training services. If they are, you select yes. If they want to go into training services after they've completed, or if you do the high school diploma option, or if you do the GED, if they're wanting to transition into training services, then that'll be documented in their case notes at that time. All right, so these are some of the other questions. Seeking post-secondary. Then we go to next. All right, so at the top, you see all the different tabs that make up the objective assessment. When completing the objective assessment, please make sure that you're entering in the information that is needed. Some might not pertain to the participant. If it's certificate, degree, different tests or referrals, make sure you answer what pertains to the participant. Here under the education tab, it went ahead and pre-filled my information. I have to change this because that's not, I'm trying to keep the training, this person cohesive. All right, so for the basic skills, for this participant, we know that they were a high school dropout and that they were basic skills deficient. We're going to say that they were basic skills deficient in both reading and math. Don't have to select language. We don't capture the language tape score. And then if any of these pertain to your participant, please select it. This objective assessment can also be used if they have to be referred to a partner agency. Just in case you aren't able to provide that service and you refer them to a partner agency to receive those services. All right, so here you see all the tabs for the objective assessment. Once you complete them, then you go to finish. I'm going to go to finish, which will then put me on page 56 in the red book. So once I select finish, This is how it will look once your objective assessment is captured. So it'll have your area, your office, WIOA, who created it, and the date. All right. All right, so next, while we're under the plan tab, we are going to go in and create the ISS for the participants, the individual service strategies for youth. All right, so I'm going to go, you always select create. So we're going to create. All right. All right, so now I'm going to create it. All right, so again, it has your identifying information, state ID, username, their name, and the program information. So to have your application date and participation date, and then your plan start. So this here is the date that the plan is starting. Again, I'm using my same date. And again, you use your area and you select your office. All right, so here we have a plan closed on. This box here is only used for when your participant has completed your program and you are closing out their services. So if I were to go in and put in a date, and I'm just going to click out, it's going to give me a message stating recording the IEP plan closure date will lock down the form and prevent any additional modifications. So it's telling you right from the beginning, if you put a date in here, it's going to lock down this form. Once this ISS is locked down, no changes can be made to it. So be mindful that a date is only entered into this box when you go in and close out the services for this participant. So I'm just going to click there and it'll take away that notification. I'm going to go to next. All right, so here we have our goals. So when you're working with the ISS, there are 4 tabs: the plans, the goals, objectives, and services. You will work with your goals and objectives. For every goal that you enter in, you should have a matching objective to it. Participants should automatically have a short-term goal and a long-term goal, which means they will have a short-term objective and a long-term objective. For the services tab, anytime a service is entered into AlabamaWorks for this participant, the system in the background will capture that service and put it under that services tab. So you as the case manager won't have to input any type of information on the ISS in regards to the services because the system will automatically do that itself. All right, so here for the general information, again, state ID, name, and you have where you will enter in your first goal. So you select the tab, you're going to add a new goal. And it'll have you again, your identifying information. It has your area, your office. You do have to select the program affiliation, which would be WIOA. And then you enter in your first type of goal. So whether it's employment, training, or schooling, you select that goal. I'm going to select schooling. And then for the term of the goal, it gives you short, long term, and intermediate term. I'm going to select short term. And then for my description of the goal, I'm going to put in for GED attainment. And then for my date that's established, this is the date that we're establishing this goal. So again, I'm going back to my 1/21/25 date. And for my estimated completion date, this is the date that you'll put in as far as, like it says, an estimated completion date. Roughly, how long will it take this participant to complete this goal? So I'm going to put in a date of, I'm gonna say 6 months. So estimating this at July 25th, July 21st, 2025. And then my completion status is gonna be open because now we're opening up this ISS. At the bottom is a text box. If you want to put information in, the participant is wanting to attend, such and such program to attain their GED. You can put that in there. Also, that information will be needed to put into their case notes. So I'm going to save that first goal. And so now here you see the goal. So when you go in to add that long-term goal, you do the exact same thing. You add the goal, you put your date, select the type of goal, education, long-term, and put in your time frame. Again, like I mentioned, for every goal, you have to have a matching objective for it. So we're going to add a new objective. And it looks just like for the goal. So I said GED attainment for my goal and it had it. So I select that goal. It pre-filled my goal date established, my area, my office. Again, I have to select the program, which is WIOA. And for my objective, I'm just putting in something. And for the date, I'm using my same 01/21/2025 date. Okay, so it has a different tab. It has a review date tab. So if you click in that box, the system will automatically populate a review date. Because initially I said my estimated completion date was going to be 6 months, the system kind of rounded it to say, okay, well, review by March 25th. You can either use the system populated date or you can set a date for yourself to review this information. Again, my completion status will be open. And I do have another text box if there's information that you want to put in that box. And then we hit save. All right, so now it has my objective saved. So I'm going to hit next so you can see what it looks like for the services tab. All right, so it has my objective assessment. That was the first service that we entered. The system will automatically populate a duplicate code for your youth service code for these, but these are adult service codes. So don't, let it bother you that, oh, I didn't put this service in. It's okay. The system automatically duplicated the service code, which would be used for adults. All right, so then once you've entered in your objective, your objective and your goal, then you hit finish. Now for the ISS, it does have to be signed and dated. All right, so if you have the Adobe signature, it can be signed within the system. If not, the ISS does have to be printed, signed by the case manager and the participant, or parent guardian if they're below the age of 19, and then re-upload it back in the system. So in order to print the ISS, here on this page where it says display print, you select that option. And then it's giving you all your information that you put in so you can verify your information again. So it has your goals, your objective, the services, and then you go to print. Once you go to print, it will pre-fill your page, and this is what it will look like. So then you print it. Again, you get the signatures, and then it does have to be uploaded back into AlabamaWorks. All right, so to get out of this page, you go to return. You entered in our objective assessment and our ISS. Now we have to go in and put in the code for the ISS. So in order to put in the code, we have to go back to programs. Okay. And you click on your enrollment. If you click anywhere in the gray area, it will expand it or collapse it for you. So to enter in the services, you're going to go to activities, enrollments, and services. And again, it shows our initial closed objective assessment. So in order to add in the ISS service, we're going to go to create activity enrollment / service. And again, this is going to look familiar because it's the same 7 tabs. So it has our general information, the area, and again, you will select your office. And so for the activity code, this time, I go in and I select develop service strategies, which it says IEP / ISS. It's the same for adults and youth. Okay, now we have to put in our projected begin date. I'm gonna again use my same date. And then I'm going to put in my actual begin date because now this person is actually going to start receiving services to reach the goal that was set on the ISS. And then my projected end date. The projected end date you'll put in that kind of like the normal length of the program. Generally, we'll put in like 2 years. That way, that gives that participant time to complete all aspects of your program, whether it's getting that secondary diploma or equivalent, going into training, if they're going to do work-based learning, whatever it is that this participant is going to receive in your program, we ask that you kind of extend that date. Now, you can always go in and update that date if you see that that projected end date is nearing, but the participant is still actively involved in your program. You can always go in and extend that date. So I'm going to put my date out for 2 years. Again, it has the case manager information. I'm going to go to next. And again, you you as the provider. And then you select your contract information. Then we'll go down to next. And again, it takes us to our last page, which is the closure information. The ISS, like I said, it remains open until your participant has completed your program. So on this closure page, no information is entered and you select finish. All right, so now we have our green open and our closed yellow C for that service. All right, so now we put in that first service. Now we're going to go in and add a TABE test. So to enter in a TABE test under the WIOA ribbon, you select educational functioning level for measurable skill gains. All right, again, you have to create it. All right, so again, it'll have their information. It'll be your area, your office, and then you have to, before that, it'll have that you selected that they were basic skills deficient. They're not attending high school, so this pulled from the enrollment portion. Then you'll enter in your pre-test date. And you select your category, and that'll be the ABE. And then the type of assessment. and then it's going to be the table 11, 12. And here for the functional area, this is where you select either your reading or your math. So we'll select the reading first. And here you will put in your score. If you put in your score and kind of tap select out, it will automatically pre-fill their educational functioning level for you. It'll also automatically determine if they are basic skills deficient. So entering this information in the system is verifying when initially you said that this participant was basic skills deficient. So the score is verifying it. So it has your educational functioning level and that they are basic skills deficient.
Kate, do you have a question?
Yes, ma'am. What are your guidelines for basic skills deficient? So typically anything below 12.9 grade level, which is like level 6 on the tape.
No, below 8.9, it's basic skills deficient.
Okay.
All right. So now we'll hit save. Excuse me. All right, I'm going to go in and add in a math tape score also because I do want to show you once that participant post tape, how their post tape will be entered in. So for the math, again, the identifying information, I put in my date. Again, the category and the type of tape that it is. And now my level. And now I'm going to put in my score. And the system has populated that it has their educational functioning level and that they are basic skills deficient. And once you save that information, so now it has both initial pre-tape tests and their education and functioning level. Once that participant has remediated and they're like, okay, it's time to post test. Once you post test in a subject, this is how you're entering into AlabamaWorks. So you click on whichever test that they post taped in. So you go back into their original pre-test. You go down to the bottom of the page. And here where it says create post-assessment record, you select that option. It'll have all the pre-test information at the beginning. And now it has the section for post-assessment. So for the type of assessment, the table 11, 12, and now it asks how did they test? What version? The table 11 or the 12? I'm going to select the 11. You have to put the date in that they post tape. And then you have to put in their score. Okay, so their initial tape score was the scale score was 506. Their post tape scale score was is a 524. The numbers went up, however, their educational functioning level did not go up. Anytime a participant post tape and they do not receive a gain, which means an increase in the educational functioning level, this information is not recorded in the post-assessment ribbon. You will record that information in a case note and upload those test results into AlabamaWorks. If they receive an increase in the educational functioning level, where if you do the table, it'll say their NRS level. If their NRS level increases, then that information is entered under the post-assessment ribbon. So we've entered it in and we see that it did not create a new educational functioning level. So on this one, I'll select cancel. And it takes me back to back to my ribbon, and it does not have anything for first PY post test information. Again, if they do not receive a gain on their post test, do not enter it in under this ribbon, upload the document, and enter in a case note. All right, so now we are going through the book. We are on page 71, which is the next section for adding documents in the system. All right, so I'm going to go up to the top of the page under column 3, and I'm going to select documents with staff in parentheses. You all should have a scanner with Twain capabilities, or a scanner that can scan into Alabama, that can scan to your computer. The printer, I'm sorry, the scanners with Twain capabilities can scan directly into AlabamaWorks. But if you have a scanner in general where you can scan and upload the documents to your computer, by all means, that's fine. All right, so to upload documents into the system, you'll go to add a document, or if you're going to scan it directly in, I'm sorry, I do want to show you cancel. If you're going to scan it directly in, you select scan a document, or either add a document. I'm going to select add a document. All right, the top part, program association, leave that as it is. That way, other case managers within your program, if they're assisting this participant for whatever reason, they can see the document. When programs are monitored, monitors can see all documents also. The only red asterisk is by documents tag, and this is where you will put the name of whatever document that you're uploading. So for this participant, since we'll say it's their first time, I'll say enrollment documentation. This enrollment documentation will consist of all documentation used to verify this participant's eligibility and enrollment. So identifying information, driver's license, social security card, selective service, TAPE results, self-attestation forms, consent forms. All of these forms will be grouped under where it says enrollment documentation. We ask that when you do your first upload, when you are enrolling a new participant, if you would group those documents together and upload it as one file, it makes it easier when we're going through verifying information that we can just scroll down the page to view all documents instead of about 10 different documents, one for driver's license, one for social security card, one for food stamps, one for TAPE. It makes it easier on the individuals reviewing it, and it also makes it easier on you all too, so you won't have to go through and recreate this tab multiple times just for their enrollment information. Now, once you get additional documentation, whether it's a post tape, or if they received a certificate from MAP, anything in that nature, then of course you upload that individually. But for creating a new enrollment, we ask that those eligibility and enrollment documents be one group by itself. All right, so then here we're going to attach your file. So you'll select your file and pull whatever is from wherever you have it saved as, that's where you will, and I'm trying to find a file. I probably don't have any out here.
Probably not.
Probably not. But you find your file, select it. AlabamaWorks, now once you select the file and it loads, it will show you the first page of your bundle. If you don't see the first page and you hit save, it'll tell you. So like I hit save, and it'll say at least one document attachment is required. So once you see that first page of your file, then you hit save, and then you'll know that your documents are saved.
Make sure you attach the correct document to the correct person.
Or
All right. Now we're going to go into how to add a case note. Again, we already have a tab under the third column that says case notes. And it gives us two places where we can add a case note. We have the blue hyperlink here, add a new case note. And we have a red one at the bottom that says add a case note. So it gives you two places where you can go in to add a case note. Once you select add a case note, you'll put in your date. And then you select your area and your office. And then your program, and that'll be WIOA Title I. And then you have to put a subject. All right, once you put your subject, then you put your case note.
I don't know if your share screen went to the case note window.
It didn't pop that one.
It did.
It just,
it's technically a separate screen.
yeah,
I
it'll
just
pop
wanted
up.
to make sure you knew that.
There, it's in the book.
It's on page 75 in the book.
Yeah, so
75 and 76 in the book.
Thank you.
Pops it up in a separate window and it's only sharing
That's right.
the first window. Very
and then
nice.
there are also examples of case notes in the case note and in the case management training that Kevin did. There's the PowerPoint is on the staff online resources, and then there's the recording of it from the training we did a couple weeks ago on the YouTube channel.
All right. So now we'll save it. All right, so once you save your case note, all case notes will automatically be saved in this section. So once you save it, this is where it'll show. Yeah, this one has a lot of case notes. All right.
Going all the way back to window.
All right, so now we are on page 78 in the book, and this is adding a service. So just to show you again how to go in and add a service. So we're going to go back to programs, and we'll go again to our WIOA enrollment, and we go to enrollment activity services. And again, we create an enrollment. All right, it has our identifying information, the area, and we select the office, which again will be your office. And now you select your activity code. And now you'll have more options of activity codes for your participants. So I'm going to go in and add the financial literacy service, the 275. And my projected end date. And again, once you go to next, you select your provider, which will be you. The next option is selecting the contract for it. And then we go to next, and it's going to automatically take me to my closure page. So this service here, the last activity date, which we're going to say was the 31st, that they actually completed it on that day and that it was successful. Again, the status, school status on last day of service will still be that they're not attending school. Again, I do have to verify. You always have to verify for every service that you put in. There's also this tab here where it says case notes. So if you had a case note regarding this service, if you go to add a case note, it will populate and you can add a case note and it will go to your case note section. So just in case if you didn't want to add, you can add the case note here, or if you want to go out and select case notes under the third column, you can do that as well. But all case notes go to the exact same place. And then once you hit finish, and there's our 275 service code. All right. Any questions at this point before we get to the part where we show you how to close out a participant once they have completed your program? All right, so no questions? All right, so now we're at the point in the book, we're on page 86. So we're at the point now where we are closing out this participant. So if your participant has completed your program, or if there is the case that this participant has unsuccessfully completed your program, these will be the steps of how to close them out in AlabamaWorks. First things first, you're going to be under the services tab, which that's where we are now. And any services that you have open, you have to make sure that you close those services out. They all have to be closed before you can successfully enter a closure in to AlabamaWorks for your participant. All right, so we're going to start at the services tab. So our service that we have open here is that ISS, that first service, the ISS, the 413. So in order to go in and close it, right here, if you select close, selecting close will automatically take us to this closure page, on the services tab, that number 7 tab. It's going to automatically take you there. So here, what we will put in is our last service date. So the last date, of service for this participant. So I'm going to say that on February 3rd was their last day of service. And for this purpose, we'll say that they could successfully complete it. Again, you answer your completion code based on the status of that participant for this ISS. If they've stopped coming and you've been trying to attempt contact and they just completely dropped out of the program themselves, it will not be successful. So just make sure when you're answering these completion codes, they are being answered based on the status for that participant. The school status on last day of service, we are going to say that this participant received their secondary or equivalent because we're saying that this ISS is successful. It's going to ask me the school status verification. So because I'm saying that this participant completed this program successfully, I'm going to use my school records because I'm going to use my GED as my verification documentation for this participant. Then I'm going to select finish. All right. All right. So now I have my services closed. Now I'm going to um enter in the MSGs for this participant. So under our WIA ribbon, and I'm on page 93, under the WIA ribbon, there's a tab that says measurable skill gains. So I'm going to go in, again, select it, and I have to create my measurable skill gains. Always has the identifying information. It automatically pre-filled the office. Now I have to select the skill attainment information. So I have to select the skill type. And for this one, I'm going to select the option that pertains to what type of documentation or how they completed the program. So I'm going to, and then it asks the date attained. I'm going to put in my 02/03/2025 date. And then it asks me the type of achievement. And then you select the type of achievement. And again, you see the little asterisk over in the left corner, you have to verify this information. And it only gives one option. And you type in that documentation. We go down and we save it. And now it has the MSG in. For participants that enroll in the GED program, once they take the actual GED test, each portion that they complete, a MSG can be entered for it, only for the actual test, not for the practice test. Only for the actual test can each portion of the GED exam be entered in if they have passed it, and to receive a MSG for the GED. So you could possibly have 5 MSGs for the GED, the 4 subjects taken, and then the completion as a whole. So just kind of FYI information, as far as capturing MSGs for your GED participants. All right. Next, we're going to enter in a credential, showing you how to enter in a credential. So whether it's the high school diploma option that they're doing, the GED, or if they have taken a portion of math and you're entering in that credential, this is how you will enter it in. So you'll select credentials, then you're going to create a credential. All right, then you have to select your area and your office. And then it asks the type of credential received. So this is where you will put in your credential received. And we do have to verify it, even though it does not have an asterisk by it. And then if it's for a GED, you select copy of degree or certificate. You do have to put in the date that that credential was received. So I'm going to put in my date. Also, when you enter in a credential, the credential has to be tied to an activity service code. So if it's a MAP credential, you have to make sure you put in that MAP service code. If it's for the GED, make sure you have that 406 service code in, because again, our credentials have to be tied to that service code. For training purposes, I'm just going to select the ISS for it to make sure that it's tied to something so you all can see how it looks when you're entering this information into AlabamaWorks. Once you do that, then you select save. All right, so now your credential is captured into AlabamaWorks. All right, so we've entered in our MSG, we've entered in our credential. Now we're going to continue the process of closing out this participant. So in order to continue this process, and I am on page 98, in order to continue this process, we first have to close out their ISS. If you try to close out a participant and the ISS is not closed, you will get a red message stating you have an open ISS in AlabamaWorks. So you go back to plan. And now we're going to go in to close this. And for our status right now, it's saying open. So we go to edit. Now, when you're creating an ISS, you're going to start from the beginning, which is starting at plan. When you're going to go in to close it, you're going to work backwards. Because again, on that plan page, if you put a date in that plan closed on, it's going to lock your ISS. And you won't be able to add any more information to it. So to close it, we're going to work backwards, and we're going to start at the objectives. On the objectives tab, again, it has our identifying information and it has our objective. So to go in and make edits to it, under the action column, you select edit. And again, it's all the same information we had. And we're going to go in, and now you have to enter in an actual completion date. And you put that completion date that they've completed the program, and then your completion status. So when we created it, our status was open. Now that we're closing it, we have to change it to close. And then you have to select a reason. And it only gives you two. It's either going to be successful or unsuccessful. So make sure when you're closing out this ISS that you're putting in for that goal and objective if it was successful or unsuccessful. We're going to say successful and save it. And see, now we have our status as closed for the objective portion. Now we have to go to close out our goal. So you select goal, and it's going to be just like the objective. You go to edit. You type in your actual completion date and your completion status, which is we're closing it. And then the reason. Again, it's either going to be successful or unsuccessful. And then you hit save. I selected that. I don't know why I did that, but okay. And see, now my status is saying closed for my goals. Now I have to go from where it all started from, which is at the plan tab. And it has the identifying information, my plan start date. Now I can go in on plan close, and I'll type in my plan close date. And again, it's letting me know putting this date in will lock down this document, but we've already closed our other tabs in. So I'm just gonna just next through it. And once again, I'm verifying everything is closed. And now I'm on, so it'll have all your services that have been entered into AlabamaWorks. And then we hit finish. And so now your ISS, it'll have your area, your office, and your status will be closed. All right. Okay. Now I am on page 106. Now we're going to enter in the closure. So we've closed all services. We've closed the ISS. We've entered in any MSGs, any credentials. And now we are getting to the point where we're going to actually close out this participant's WIOA enrollment. So again, we're under the WIOA tab. And we're going to go down to closure. And we have to create our closure. All right, so now we're on our closures tab. Again, it'll have your office pre-filled. The next asterisk, it has accountability closure / exit status. It's 3 options: invalid social, fail to disclose, retirement, neither condition applies. WIOA is a federal program. Individuals have to provide their social security number. If they do not, we would not be at the point where we are closing their services. And then they have the retirement option. So we always select neither condition applies. For the outcome, the school status at exit, you answer this based on their status when they're exiting your program. For the training purposes, we said that our participant received their GED. And so I have to verify it. And I have to verify it. And I'm going to use school records because now I have a copy of their GED. The youth placement at exit, once the participant has exited your program, if they have gone into either post-secondary, advanced training, military, or a qualified apprenticeship, select that option, and you also need that placement date. For this participant, we're going to say that they did not enter any, they just completed the program. For here, the employment information, if your participant has entered employment, enter in that information. In your booklet, there pages 107 through 112 shows you the information of how to enter in employment if your participant has gained employment. And this information is going to be the best of your knowledge. The name of the employer, if they're full-time, part-time, how much they make per hour, how many hours they work per week, if they're receiving, any kind of benefits or anything. We know when we're working with you, sometimes it's hard to get all of the information that is needed, but try to get as much as possible and answer those questions as best of your ability, so that information can be captured. Then I'm going to hit save. All right. And so now in AlabamaWorks, it has our closure date. So this here date is put in, this is kind of like a soft closure because in AlabamaWorks, once you enter in a closure date, the system gives this participant 90 days to either go into post-secondary, find employment, maybe figure out that, hey, I stopped going and I really need this program. If they're wanting to possibly come back before they are entered into follow-up, because the follow-up tabs will open 91 days after this closure date. So that time, once those follow-up tabs populate, then that participant is in follow-up status. Now, you can still provide services for this participant. And those services are listed as your F services or your follow-up services. But just, let the participants know, hey, you're not coming in for your, value added service every 30 days. You don't want to go into follow up. So, just make them mindful that they're still case managed even after this closure date is entered in. Because there are going to be 4 quarters of follow up. So you want to make sure that they know you can't get rid of me that easy, because you still have to follow up with them just to kind of see where they're going and what other services can be provided for them, or maybe if they can be referred to a partner agency to receive additional services. All right. Any questions? And we know this is a lot of information. And that's why we always, let the providers know, you know, it'll all make sense once you actually get into the system and start doing it, because it will become very repetitive. Initially, you're going to enter in the same services. You'll see the same services all the time. Your ISS, the objective assessment. So it'll all come together once you get into the system and start actually completing these services, and doing the enrollments for your participants. The book is very helpful. In your book, at the bottom of each page, it does have the help desk email. If you have a question, you can go to help desk, or you can send your question to the youth email.
When will LBW be responsible for doing all of the enrollments and documentation uploads and doing all of the things? Like, when will
Now you all have access now, and now this was the last part of the training today.
Okay, so Tara is not doing this anymore.
Correct.
When I try to like filter cases, and maybe it's just because none have been assigned to me, it shows no one.
Right.
shows,
None,
like,
none of them have
people.
been assigned to y'all yet.
Okay.
I'll go by your monthly report, and the easiest thing would be to assign them all to one case manager. And because you'll all still be able to case manage them and see them and see everything and do everything you need to do. It's just easier if they're all under one person. So just email me whoever you want that person to be, and I'll reassign them, and then you'll be able to see them. And then any new participants, you'll automatically assign to you or whoever the case manager is. There are a few things that we did not cover in the book, but it's got step-by-step instructions if you need that. You can set up alerts for your the people in your caseload to, if they're 17 and you want an alert for when they turn 18 so they can do their selective service stuff, or if you want to know it's almost time for them to have follow-up entered or anything like that, you can set up your preferences in your alerts, and that's in the book as well. It shows you where to find the state ID if you're looking for that, because we use the state ID to reference all participants. If you ever need us to look at it, or if you need to email the help desk because something has a system closure or anything like that, you can email the help desk, but make sure you have that state ID. It shows you there's a career explorer inside of AlabamaWorks that you can use, that the participants can go through. Shows you how to set up case note templates. And then it shows you where the staff online resources are, which I'll show you those real quick. This is where you can find this book. So you click on the little 3 bars at the top and you go to staff online resources. And here is where all of the documents and training materials and anything and everything you would need for your participants or for references. So the book that we've been going through today is here. This is where you'll find the most up-to-date forms. So you know you're using the correct one. Try not to make 1,000 copies of something and use it continuously because things get updated. But this is the book we've been referencing today. So if you need a copy, you can print it off. There's also the PowerPoints from the recent trainings that we've done if you want those. There's the YouTube channel where I'll be posting this from today, and these are the videos from the other trainings. We had a work-based learning training and our youth provider training. And then anything else you might need. I mean, if y'all don't need everything on here, but this is primarily the youth and then eligibility are the ones that y'all will be using the most. You can get your information release form or customer agreement for anything that you need will be here. And we keep this up to date, so it's the best resource for you to find things on training, information, forms, anything like that. So do you have any other questions? All right. Well, thank y'all for coming to training and have a good rest of your afternoon.